Don't mind me, I'm just playing Nintendo Switch 2 upside down, which based on a recent patent by Nintendo, we all may be soon. Perhaps not quite like this, but their patent's a little weird all the same, and I want to introduce you to a couple of friends that have some thoughts about it. Handray and Crazy Handray here talk about that crazy Nintendo patent that the Switch 2 might be able to be used by flipping the screen upside down, basically by rotating it and attaching the Joy-Cons on the opposite sides that they're originally meant to be. A user over on the Switch 2 subreddit called JarDog made an amazing render of how this would actually look. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, it doesn't quite work on my amazing Switch 2 mock-up sent to us by the accessory manufacturer iVoler, who, by the way, makes awesome carrying cases. You can get half off this one in the description below, because on this mock-up, they're using just standard magnets, meaning it won't actually, attach to it. Now, it does fit in, at least on this side here, so it seems like it should work in theory, assuming the Switch 2 actually uses electromagnets, which it actually is rumored to be. And that would, in theory, solve that problem, because with electromagnetics, you can reverse the polarity, as I learned in 3rd grade, to allow you to have these attached on either side. Now, of course, I don't know how the Switch 2 would actually recognize that it needs to switch, but even if it can sense that somehow, I don't know if that quite jives with the pins we can see in the trailer and how they connect to the system as well. I guess you could have 2 sets so it connects either way, but clearly there's some unanswered questions here, including, isn't this entire idea kind of pointless? I mean, it looks basically the same either way. I just don't understand why you would ever need to do this, but I'm getting ahead of myself here because we'll go into more of that soon. But I do want to cover some of the possible benefits that could come from this new ability if it ends up being a real thing. With number 1 being, it is stupid simple, in that no matter how the screen is oriented, you can connect the Joy-Cons, and I have to say, that would be kind of nice. I mean, it saves you a handful of seconds of even that, but that would be a kind of nice feature if you can just randomly connect these however you want. A second benefit that the patent itself points out is that the headphone jack, which is normally found on top of the system, could be on the bottom instead, which I guess could be useful in a handful of scenarios. I don't know, I never found an issue with the headphone port being located on top before, but I guess for those who do find an issue, that would resolve it. But that could introduce another small issue, because as we saw in the trailer for the Switch 2, the volume rocker is labeled plus and minus, like in the original Switch 1, which means when you're holding it upside down, assuming it didn't change function, you'd be pressing it in the opposite direction to change the volume than what you're used to, and that could be really confusing. Now, they could make it so that despite the plus and minus symbols being on it, that it still functions opposite of what they state, which on the one hand would make more sense, but it would be contrary to the labels on the volume rocker itself, which is a weird issue to have either way, so there's no perfect solution except for Nintendo not labeling it at all. The third and possibly final benefit I can think of is more for Nintendo than anyone else, in that this could be good for marketing, because the Switch is already known for, well, switching from handheld to tabletop to, of course, being docked, and having the ability to flip it, like so, would be pretty cool and give them another thing to throw out there in the advertising, even if it doesn't really amount to much. Basically, I'm saying this could be the ultimate Switch, in that it can switch in any number of ways. So those are the only 3 benefits I could really think of, or should I say we could think of, especially when only really 2 of them apply to consumers, with the final one being only useful for Nintendo itself for branding purposes. So beyond that, there's not a whole lot going for it, especially with my next 4 reasons for why I think this patent isn't going to amount for anything for Switch 2, or why it may not, because it could still happen, but here's the main reason why I don't think it's going to appear for the system. Number 1, it's not in the teaser trailer at all, and that would have been the ideal time to show it off. Now, I'm sure they're still holding some secrets, but is that really a secret worth holding on to? One that would barely benefit anyone and would have been kind of cool to show off in the reveal if it were there at all? But number 2 is a little bit more damning, because as we know from the proper Switch 2 reveal, the joysticks and the inside of the Switch 2 are color-coded. They match colors, like red to red, blue to blue, or whatever it is. And in this case, you'd have them on opposite sides, which would be really weird in that those colors would no longer match. So does that even make sense? Furthermore, the Joy-Cons are of course labeled plus and minus for their respective sides, and having them on the opposite sides will be pretty confusing. Actually, this might be right. This might be the correct way now. I'm already confused myself, see? That's how confusing it is! Finally, my third main reason for why I don't think the Switch 2 will be able to flip like this is for one key reason, because on the original Switch, there actually could be an argument for it, because there was only the one USB port on the bottom, whereas, which meant that if you're playing in docked or possibly even handheld modes, you could easily block that port, making it so you couldn't charge it or attach any other accessories to it. But on the Switch 2, they fixed this already because they added a second USB port right on the top in addition to the one already on the bottom, meaning that there are now options to attach accessories like the power or headphones or whatever else it may be, possibly cameras or, again, it could be anything, no matter how you have it oriented, whether it's, right side up, upside down, or whatever, which is which at this point. Again, I'm getting very confused by this point in the video. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to add a really niche feature for a tiny handful of people that could benefit from the headphone port being on the bottom. It just seems like a lot of work for not much benefit. Furthermore, this whole USB thing reminded me of another issue, which you might be picking up on right now, in that they're not aligned. The bottom one is centered, the top one is not. Meaning with a Switch 2 flipped, you wouldn't be able to dock it because it needs to be in the center, and that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for a system for, one of the benefits I had mentioned being it's stupid simple. Well, that wouldn't be the case if you can't dock it upside down. Heck, will the kickstand even work when it's flipped upside down? Now, of course, this one's non-functioning on my mock-up, but let's go and try it on a proper Switch OLED, which has a very similar kickstand to what it looks to be on the Switch 2, where if we, extend it, you can see how it works normally, but if we go upside down, it still works, look at that. So, okay, that may be one point in favor of the Switch 2 possibly having this as a feature, the flip feature, which again, I'm still doubting, but let's run with the idea that somehow the Switch 2 actually is able to flip. Because I do want to explore two gameplay ideas I have. I don't know why I got rid of it. I want to explore two gameplay ideas I have, the only possible ideas I could think of for how being able to flip could benefit the Switch 2 from a game design standpoint. Number one is a little out there, and that is it could do some like wild Metal Gear Solid style, like messing with your gameplay, like how you had to use a second controller on the original PlayStation or GameCube, in that they can make it where you need to flip the system upside down for some kind of benefit. I actually think this might work better for like a Zelda type experience, or maybe by switching upside down and flipping the Joy-Cons around, you could flip Gravity, for instance, where everything is upside down. But that seems to me like a lot of hassle for not much benefit. For one, every time you disconnect the Joy-Cons, you are technically creating, however small it may be, the risk of dropping the Switch 2, especially if you're mid-gameplay. Second of all, as I just said, this is not going to work docked. So I think it'd be kind of a dumb idea, even if it's just for a simple gameplay mechanic like that. Like, it'd be fun, but is it worth it? Probably not. And that brings us to my second idea for how this could change gaming in a very small way, because I'm gonna be real with you, this idea is incredibly stupid, even more stupid than my first idea. But I do want to talk about it real quick, because it got me thinking of other ways the Joy-Cons might be able to attach to the Switch 2. And one of those ideas was, what if you could actually turn it around so it's facing opposite the screen? Well, what would the point of that be? And for this purpose, I'm actually going to bring over my Switch OLED, which actually you can do it just fine as far as I can tell. It attaches and detaches just perfectly. So as you can see, they are facing the wrong way. And this gave me the thought, because this would normally be horrible for anyone, but it gave me the idea of what if you could play a multiplayer game this way, where you kick the kickstand out, we set it up this way, so one person, let's say DK here, has access to the controls, while the other person, Wario in this case, can see the screen. I mean, the two players have to communicate in order to get through the game, with Wario telling DK what to do, without DK being able to see anything. That could be fun! Now, to be fair, you don't really need the setup to do this. You can just have the second player close their eyes on any other system, or play online to solve that problem too, which other games have already done online. But if you're in a room together, you want to do something kind of silly and fun, this would be a way of going about it. Maybe not a great way, but it would be a use of flipping the Switch and the Joy-Cons. So, yeah, everyone, that brings us to the end of the video, in which I hope it's clear by now. I don't think being able to switch or flip the Joy-Cons around, or the Switch around, whatever you want to call it, makes a whole lot of sense. It doesn't line up with anything we've seen so far, really, in terms of the trailer or how it complements anything else in the system beyond a couple of use case scenarios, if even that. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I personally don't believe that's going to happen. I will be happy to be proven wrong. Maybe Nintendo will have some ideas I didn't think of. And until April 2nd, we won't know for sure. But what do you guys think? Are there any ideas you can think of for this application to be able to flip the Switch that would make sense, whether gaming or more utilitarian? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear it. Otherwise, that's going to wrap it up for me here, or should I say us. And I think Handray and Crazy Handray have one final message for you, and that is, click that subscribe button. You see these guys? They're not messing around. Click subscribe if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate it. And make sure to check out our other Switch 2 features involving this awesome mock-up we have, as we touch on them a lot. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye, everyone!